My name is Jeff Bishop.
My name is Nicolette Agan.
I guess I want to talk for a minute about my life before my miracle.
My miracle.
Years ago, I believed I was an atheist. I did not believe in God. I didn't believe in what Christians believed in.
I was 24 years old. My dad taught me how to work with my hands, and that if you wanted anything in this life, all you had to do was work for it.
But my mother was a big card sender, and she would always send cards for Christmas, for birthdays, for anniversaries, everything. And she passed away in May. And the Christmas before that, 5 months earlier, we never got a Christmas card from her.
And I did feel that God was working on me a little bit, but I ignored it for years and years and years. But one day, on my way home from work, it was so heavy on me, I finally just said aloud in my car, if this is you, God, if you're real and you really want me in church and you want me to become a Christian, then you will send me somebody.
God opened doors for me as far as in the business world. I came from little to none education. I was homeschooled, and God opened doors for me through relationships in my life, and it led into me being in commercial remodel work. And I guess at that time in my life, at 24 years old, I was doing around $500,000 worth of business.
She was battling cancer at the time, so we said, well, the reason we didn't get a Christmas card, she was fighting cancer, and she just didn't get them out this year, and I never said anything to her about it, and she passed away 5 months later. And then 7 months later, in December of 2014, I go to the mailbox and pull out this card.
Later on that evening, I went to pick up my kids from daycare, and my daughter had cheerleading practice later on that afternoon. We got there, and I dropped her off and set my chair up to watch her practice. And about 15 minutes later, a lady came running up with her two girls and apologized for being late to the coach, and then proceeded to sit next to me. I had never met her before. This was probably one of the first practices that Madeline had had. She sits right next to me, and she says, "Oh my gosh, I've just had the worst day."
I bought what money could buy. I had the four-wheeler boat, jet ski, building our dream home, had 40 acres, living life, pretty much to the point where I felt invincible, that nothing could touch me. My brother was always someone that would help me out, or I could get to do anything for me. And he worked for me, so we spent a lot of time together. On November the 10th, 2009, it was a typical morning, just like anything else. I was going to work on the house, and he was coming to help. About an hour sitting there waiting. He didn't show up, so I took off looking for him.
And she proceeded to ask me what church I went to. And I looked at her very funny, and I told her, I said, I actually don't go to church. And right then and there, she invited me to go to her church. And not only that, she told me she would meet me somewhere so she could walk me in the door and introduce me to everybody, show me where to go and what to do, all at the same time.
Got to my parents' house. I asked both my parents if they had seen him, and they both responded, "No, he's still asleep." And it wasn't typical of him to sleep that long, but I said, okay. So I went to his room to wake him up pretty much and tell him, let's go. And when I grabbed the doorknob to his bedroom, I knew that there was no life in the room. He had passed away. I remember grabbing his arm, and that was the reality. We try the best to move on with life after that. Me and my brother, we both have a disease called Marfan's, and the Marfan's is actually what took his life. His aorta valve erupted in the middle of the night, and that was it.
And I recognized her handwriting immediately and recognized the return address, and I looked at the stamp, and it was stamped December 15th, 2014, which was 7.5 months after she passed away. And there's nobody else on my side of the family. I'm the last one. It's just me. I had no brothers and sisters, and my mom and dad are gone, so there was nobody. We figure that she mailed this card to us a year earlier when she was fighting cancer, and we didn't get it.
It brought a lot of fear in my life of dying the same way. Anxiety, the panic attacks came, the emergency room visits, to the point where I was done with life. I couldn't live anymore. I couldn't sleep anymore because I was afraid if I went to sleep, that would be it for me too. I begged every day of my life for God to help me.
I looked at her again, very puzzled, and to be honest, I had goosebumps all over me. I knew that God had heard me and that He was very real and that it was a miracle because I didn't believe for the longest time that He was real. That right there, within just a few minutes, maybe an hour had passed, and God showed up.
I guess the turning point for me in my life was my cousin sponsored me to go to a Christian retreat called Tres Dias. And to me, it was looking for hope, looking for life, looking for anything. And it was a 3-day weekend, and it was going to be the first time in 2 years I was separated for more than a minute from my wife. My anxiety brought me to the point where I didn't take a bath, I didn't use the bathroom, I didn't do anything without her beside me because I thought that she could save me. So they sent me away on this bus up on this mountain with no contact, and I mean, at the time, that was the bravest thing I've ever done.
And this card laid somewhere for 12 months. And it was my first Christmas without her. And it came 5 days before Christmas, 7 months after she passed away.
I sat in a room with about 100 men, and I remember sitting there talking to the guy beside me and, telling him I was there looking for hope, looking for anything. And he listened to everything I had to say, and he told me, maybe you should try a support group. And he wrote a number down, passed it to me. And I guess it was probably about 8 hours later, that man came walking back in the room, and he was wearing a suit. And he went to the front of the room to tell a story.
And he said, okay, I'll take on your challenge. And he showed up with somebody that not only invited me to church, but offered to hold my hand through the whole thing. And after that, about 3 months later, I was saved. And I've been a Christian ever since.
So it was perfect timing, and that's my miracle.
About his son, and how he lived a life after God's own heart, and how he was only 26 years old, like my brother, and how he worked and lived a normal life. And one day, he went to sleep and he never woke up. And out of 100 people in this room, this man was standing in front of me, looking at me, telling me. And for the first time in my life, I got to feel my lungs fill with a breath of fresh air like I've never tasted before. The burdens lifted off me immediately because I knew someone was looking at me in my eyes and understanding my pain. That was a miracle. That was my miracle that God gave me to live again, to wake up every day and be thankful for breath of life and to tell my story.